Welcome, everyone. It's an exciting Tuesday, the 2nd of April, and Soul Search is so pleased to welcome Amalia Camateros for our first book club discussion. Her beautiful book has just come out. It is Transmissions of Earth Spirit Wisdom, the Shamanic Way of Seeing, Being, and Healing. And I'd like to share with you a bit about Amalia's background, and then we can invite her to dive into this gorgeous book of hers. So Amalia is the author of this book, as well as Spirit of the Stones. She is a naturopathic doctor from Australia who has managed her own natural and holistic healing center with over 14 practitioners for over 15 years. During this time, she worked as a personal health consultant for INXS, Australia's foremost and leading musical rock band, for 6 years. Amalia is a shamanic healer, a psycho-spiritual counselor, a ceremonialist, a shamanic priestess, a transformational teacher, and earth spirit wisdom guide who inspires us to reconnect with earth and our own body as a sacred temple of living spirit. Along with the extensive work experience she has as a counselor and healer, she has garnered a notable reputation as a ceremonial dancer and as a powerful facilitator of her shamanic-based earth spirit dance, which is a trademark of her workshops. Along with her own clients, Amalia has also currently worked as a shamanic psycho-spiritual counselor at the Sanctuary of Sedona, a shamanic recovery center for addiction. Welcome, Amalia.
Hello, Alison from Soul Search. Thank you. It's great to be here. This is very exciting. This is taking a step. Hello, everybody. Hi. All right.
Is there anything that you would like to add to the bio that I read before turning over the whole book to you?
No. There's so much. So many of us do so much here in Sedona. I could go on and on with breath work, and I'm an ecstatic facilitator for ecstatic dance and chakra balancing. There's a lot there, but I think the overall umbrella has been covered, so that's great. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, I'm going to step back and I will hand the stage to you. Please enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Alison. Hello, everybody. I am very happy to be here, and being live is a different energy. It's direct to spirit in a sense. It's like going to the source of connection, and I'm really enjoying that. Here is my beautiful new book that was just published by the Awakened Press, and it's such a beautiful book. And I wanted to stipulate here that I designed this logo here, this symbol. It comes down, the energy comes down into earth. From the center, it goes up into spirit. So earth, spirit, and then wisdom. It's kind of like a new yin yang symbol of earth, spirit, wisdom. And so this book here, just so you know, it's not something you have to read from the beginning to the end. It's not a linear book, but it can be very much, because there are 3 sections to the book. There's an earth section, which really covers the shamanic grounded body energy. And then there's the spirit section, and that is pertaining to more of the mind, the ideology, the stretching of the parameters of how we think about things and how we might see things. And the wisdom section, which is the 3rd section of the book, really comes into bringing those 2 dualities, 2 above and below, into the heart, into the emotional embodiment. So there are 3 sections. You might go, I really want some grounding today. So you might go to the earth section. Or I feel like I really want to get out of all this matrix and all of from the trenches. I want to get out of this and look higher from the balcony of spirit. Then you may go to the spirit section. Or I'm having struggle embracing something. I'm having a struggle with too much in my mind and I want to get back into my heart. Then this is somewhere where you could go to. But Also, you can actually start from earth and go all the way through, whatever you want. I'm just giving you the idea that with this book, you can actually feel like you can have a morning coffee or a tea or your matcha or your mate or whatever you have, juice, and open it up and read only a page or two, because each excerpt is really designed to be like a medicine pill or a Zen stick that can kind of wake you up a little bit. The good old Zen stick of the monks, where they would meditate, and if they're falling asleep, the master would come and whack them on the back, and that would wake them up again. So this has a bit of that energy, this book, into it. So just to go through the format each week, this is the number one. So however many of you are here, very welcome. Hello. So great for you to be here. Thank you. We're going to cover 2 excerpts each week. So they're not long. One excerpt could be either 2 pages, it could be 3 pages. Some are only 4 or 5, but generally they're designed as medicine, shamanic medicine pills for you to take and digest, absorb, and assimilate. So each one is complete, like a little book in its own way, in its own right. So we're going to start with the format of this book club is we're going to read some excerpts, and when we get into the flow of things, perhaps the week after or the week after that, then I don't know if I'm going to be able to see you guys or not, but I was thinking maybe you could read some as well, but I'm not sure about that yet. But we'll read the excerpt. After each excerpt, there is an activation. It's not long. I'm not into long, drawn-out processes. I really am not. I think these days we don't have the luxury of space and time so much. Everything is made very digitally, quick and digital, and almost in intervals of little tiny little moments, rather than a sweeping long beingness feeling. So we are tapping away at the computer. We're swiping away. Everything's coming to us very quickly these days. So the activations aren't long and drawn out. They're very short and succinct so that you can do it. So shall we begin? All right, let's begin. The first excerpt, and for those of you who got the book, thank you very much thanks for getting the book. Thank you very much. I think you'll really like it. I love this book. It's very beautiful. And it's actually written through myself and spirit and earth and the body, the bank of wisdom that I've held. So this book had come about by sleeping in the middle of the night and then having a bolt of brilliance of light waking me up with a flash of what felt like a brilliance coming through, like, wow, this is pretty profound. I have to write this down. I can't just let this go. And this is how the book came about, where the sort of Zen stick woke me up in the middle of the night, and I would have to write it down, and then it would elaborate through my sessions with people, or it would elaborate by me thinking and pondering over that wisdom. So each diamond of flash of brilliance could be fleshed out, whether I was giving a session. And when I give sessions, I work very intuitively, in the sense of I get information, I receive information. And as I would speak to my clients and give them analogies or allegories for them to really understand what I'm sharing with them, so it's not staying just in the mental field, some of these new innovative ways of seeing things emotionally would come through. And that's how the book also came about. But before we start, why don't we just do a little bit of coming in more into our body. So if everybody could just sit upright so that your antenna and your chakra system acts like an antenna. So you are grounded from earth, where you're sitting, no matter, even if you're 10 stories high in a building, you're still connecting with the earth, with your consciousness, and spirit through the crown chakra. So root chakra and crown chakra. The root is at the perineum, where we're sitting down between the anus and the genitals, and the crown chakra is at the top of the head. So sitting nice and straight, taking a deep breath in through the nose, and exhaling from the mouth open. Again, inhaling into the nose, through the nose, and exhaling through the mouth, letting go. And just notice how the inhale is receiving and the exhale, naturally the body knows what to let go of. You don't have to say, I'm letting go of stress. The body, in actual fact, absolutely knows what and how to let go of from your body. So taking another deep breath. Exhaling and following your exhale as if it's a band of light going down the body, following this exhale down. Again, inhaling and following the breath all the way down as if it's going down a corridor, down the elevator, all the way down to the base floor, the ground floor, into the root. This type of breathing allows you to get out of the head and ground your mind into your body being, into the indigenous place of being in the ground root chakra, where we can be connected to the earth. So we're not up here thinking, and actually this is a place where a lot of our space and time gets eaten away. It's a bit of a stolen place. The mind can steal our space and time and energy, but our presence brings it to us. So 1 or 2 more breaths more and we'll start. Exhaling, mouth open. 1 more. Letting go, giving it to Mother Earth, giving what you no longer need to Mother Earth. She knows what to do. She knows how to take all we no longer need. She takes all the dead leaves and the dead branches and the dead animals and the dead human beings, and she recycles it for renewable energy. So if you have the book with you, let's go to page 81. And this particular excerpt is in the spirit section, page 81, called Shadow Cocoon. I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to do the activation, and then we can have a discussion, I guess, from comments. Most life forms develop within an enclosed receptacle, such as a cocoon, a pod, a shell, or a womb, from which they grow in the confines of safety until they are ready to emerge. There is a period of time in which incubation takes place before the breaking out of the shell or the breaching of the womb occurs. A container is absolutely needed in order to protect what is developing inside until it hatches or births and is ready to withstand the outer elements of its environs. In a harsh and glaring world, we often prefer to remain in our cocoons, our shells of protection, knowing too well that there will be a time near when we will be summoned to emerge. From the hidden place of our shadows into the light of conscious awareness, from the safety of the known into the unknown, and from a state of contraction and smallness into expansion and bigness that awaits. We must leave the safety of our shell. The cocoon is just the shell, the encasement. It is the seed, not the plant, the womb, not the baby. Fear would have us afraid to leave the safety of our emotional cocoons, wanting to stay in the confines of limitation to protect ourselves. The more we remain in these confines, just like Stockholm Syndrome, the more we come to identify with and feel relatively safe in this imprisonment. We may come to identify with our cocoon, the shell of our skin, as who we are, such as our bodies and our faces, and lose sight of that being inside which needs to hatch and emerge into our greater selves. 20 years ago, I received a pivotal call from Rabbi Gershon Winkler, a very wise man with great humor, author of more than a dozen spiritual books and teacher to many. I had met him only briefly at a New Millennium event in 2000 in Sedona, Arizona. He was greatly moved by a sacred dance prayer that I offered for the event. We had barely said hello, but he made a point of connecting with me to ask if I could offer a shamanic dance program at one of his retreats at the Walking Stick Foundation, which he owned. I had only been in the USA for a brief term from my home country of Australia, and I was feeling the presence of I was feeling the pressure of how I was going to be able to stay in the country for a longer period of time. At the beginning of our call, he asked me how I was, and I proceeded to tell him how worried and anxious I was about the pending immigration status. There was a moment of silence where I knew he was going to deliver something of great importance. He said, "Amalia, focus on your hatching, not on your eggshell breaking." I was completely struck by the depth of this wisdom. I'm going to read that again because I found it very profound and I would like to share this with you again. Amalia, focus on your hatching, not on your eggshell breaking. I was completely struck by this depth of wisdom, which touched deep within the interior of my shell and stirred some movement from the frozen state I was in. It sent me straight to the place within that needed attention, not on the shell of my existence. In our developed narcissism as a whole, where our focus is squandered on our vanity and the appearance of the physical rather than the modesty of our spiritual selves, we have been programmed to worship our body as the self. We have lost sight of our inner knowing that what we are inside is in constant emergence that reveals the truth of who we are and what we are. Our ego, which initially protects us from feeling physical and emotional pain in our early childhood years, has taken a higher seat of importance. It has started to overly concern itself with its own well-being, thus covering the truth and light of who we truly are. Our innermost being requires gestation time for development. Yes, it needs protection, but not at the expense of its own emergence. I'm going to miss out on a little bit of an excerpt from someone else's book here about the chrysalis of the butterfly. I actually do need to read this because the next part connects to this. This is an excerpt from something I found from science.com, sciencing.com. Here we go. The change inside the chrysalis is slow and gradual. The caterpillar's body digests itself from the inside out. The caterpillar is attacked by the same sort of juices that is used in its earlier life to digest food. Many of the organs are hidden in the caterpillar, and they take a new form within the chrysalis. The old body is broken down into imaginal cells, but not all the tissues are destroyed. Some old tissues pass into the insect's new body. One imaginal disc will become a wing, and there are imaginal discs that form the legs, antenna, and other organs of the butterfly. This is from a journal called What Happens Inside the Chrysalis of a Butterfly from sciencing.com. Back to my book here. We could say here that the ego is the juice that is used in earlier life to digest the food of our own experiences. It is also the excrement that can be utilized as a fertilizer to help us transfigure and transmorph into our adult selves. From the caterpillar of our own self-judgment and inadequacies, we can transform into our butterfly selves, into light beings with less density to hinder our movements as we lift our wings to fly into the freedom self. In a sense, we can say that our ego has covered up the light of who we truly are to protect us from the intensity of truth and radiant beauty. We are in the transfiguration process from caterpillar to butterfly and evolving into the greater earth angels that we are and that we are. Angelic beings on planet Earth, here to be of service to the greater mankind, to the greater kind of man. If we identify with our shadow that keeps us confined in the darkness of our cocoons, we may sabotage our plight of flight or our full potential of our light being selves. I'm going to skip a little area here. Very simply, I think I'll stop there for now. I think that's great. So I have a quote here from Richard Bach, who a lot of us know who he is, a famous author. What the caterpillar believes as the end of the world, the butterfly knows as the beginning. So this excerpt is really about how we hide that shadow self that the ego wants to protect and cover over, like, oh no, I'm beautiful, or oh no, I can do it, or oh no, don't look at the pain of what really has created me, what really I can digest my life in the juice of that ego, and the pain can produce a beautiful butterfly. But a lot of people tend to stay in that shell, in that cocoon, and hide or don't feel they can emerge. So this excerpt really is inviting us to hatch out, be mindful of a hatching that can occur for our light cells, our angelic being cells to come out into the world. We don't have to stay and nurture and nurse our wounds, even though it's important to do that, of course, but not to stay there, but to use that as the impetus for the emerging self. So we have an activation. Each excerpt actually finishes the book with an activation. Right here. They're not long, as I said earlier in the introduction. I'm not into long drawn out activations or ceremonies. And this was a fairly long excerpt, to be honest with you. The next one we're going to read is really short, but this is the activation. So if everyone could close their eyes for a minute, please, and just take a few deep breaths. Just settle in. Just maybe if you've read the book or read this excerpt or just anything that may have stood out to you about this particular reading, here is the activation. Take a few moments in quietude to see and feel what is deep within that wants to be hatched and birthed into the light of day. So just take a moment now to see what wants to be hatched from you, what wants to be birthed into the light of day, into your consciousness, into the light of day, into the world. Take time to get to know the one within that still feels it needs to shelter itself in a shell of protection. So just for now, just taking a moment to see if you can connect with that one that wants to hide, that wants to stay in the shell, that feels safe there. Give it gentle permission to steadily grow within its safe encasement until it naturally breaks its shell with ease and naturality. Now, this activation takes time. It's not something you can just read and it'll happen, but it is something to ponder. When you read that activation, it gives you something to ponder. It's a process that you can actually work through. So I need to call Alison back for a minute. Alison, are you there?
am.
Hi, Alison. So
Hi.
I'm not 100% sure how this works. For some reason, I thought it was going to be a Zoom situation where I could see my participants. So
No,
so I wasn't sure about that. But if anyone's there, I don't know if anyone's there at all, or this is the beginning of our book club. Whereas is anyone there?
we have two with us,
Okay.
Charles and an anonymous user,
What's
Facebook,
the first?
both from Facebook.
What's the first one, please?
Charles.
Charles. Charles. I know Charles. Hi, Charles. I'm so happy you're here, Charles. You're always such an incredible support in my life. And Charles read my first book, and now he's reading my second book. And is there any questions or anything you want to say, Charles, by any chance? You don't have to, but I think there's a chat. Is there a chat box or no?
He's saying hello. It's just have a
Oh,
hello.
hello. Are there any questions you might have or something I can respond to? Thank you.
That's lovely.
Thank you, Charles. And we have a Facebook anonymous user. So we know the chat box is working, which is
Oh,
great.
here we go.
Okay. I'm just going to read this out. Given that fear, in parenthesis, the illusion, the opposite of love, is always in the driver's seat when wanting to remain in the safety of a cocoon past its time, how do we get out of that sympathetic nervous system state of fight or flight to be able to emerge? Brilliant question. I wish I knew what your name was, but that was brilliant. Let me tune
I'm
into
going to
this.
pop off while you read that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Alison. Yeah, thank you. Given that fear, the illusion, opposite, given that fear is always in the driver's seat when wanting to remain in the safety of a cocoon past its time, how do we get out of that sympathetic nerve system state of fight or flight, to be able to emerge? So the first thing I would say, whoever you are, and thank you for this beautiful question, is going into that place, going into the fear as, in a sense, a part of ourselves, which is like an inner child that needs to be safe. These sort of things are remnants of childhood experiences or programs, indoctrinations that we've had that tend to stay with us. And our ego wants to protect that wounded child. Things that have happened to us in the playground, for example, where you may think, oh, I'm going to go as a 5-year-old, you're inquisitive about reaching up to touch a child, a little playmate in the sandbox, and they then dong you over the head with a spade, and the ego starts to calibrate at that time, especially past the age of 7, that it's not safe to really go and touch someone straight away, or it's not safe to approach someone or be too friendly. And then when it happens again, the ego says, see, that's not safe. And then we learn to carry that as a fear. We carry that as a fear into our life, so that then whenever you might see someone you like and you want to approach, there's a part of you that says, no, that's not safe. That's not safe. That's the ego protecting us, which is not a bad thing. But we need to really allow the acknowledgement. First of all, acknowledging to know that there is that fear. There is that fear there. And secondly, to accept it. Every fear, everything unlike love wants to be loved and accepted. Everything, as far as I know, as a practitioner, as a human being, as a wisdom being, wants to be loved and accepted. That's what we want. So those parts of us also want to be loved and accepted, not judged, not pushed away. I better not go there. No, it wants to be seen and loved and accepted. And that already allows the nerve system to come into some sort of neutralized integration, because we're not fighting something that wants to be coming forward. These fears want to come forward. They want to come forward from the subconscious into the consciousness. But the ego kind of has that doorway, it's like a dragon at the doorway, like protecting that part. That kind of becomes a bit of a treasure in ourselves because we want to guard it and hold on to it and not anyone to see it. So, of course, taking a few deep breaths, allowing that part to be seen, and maybe even having a conversation with that little part, saying, what do you need? And it might respond to you saying, I just want to be seen. That already drops the nerve system into some sort of homeostasis. Getting out of the head, taking a deep breath, and coming into your body, into the root chakra, where the possibility of safety and security and stability resides. That's the root chakra. That's what we have the capacity for there. If we're not grounded in the root chakra, in the base of our being, bringing our consciousness all the way down into that root, if we're not based and grounded there, then the opposite of safety is unsafety. The opposite of stability is instability. And the opposite of security is insecurity. That's the shadow realm of the root chakra. So coming down into our body base, giving it credence, the fear, and giving it a voice and allowing it to rest in this way and acknowledging it and bringing love and acceptance into it after you acknowledge it is what I would say. A bit of a long answer. I just said before, I'm not into long-winded things, but that was a long-winded answer. Hello, Barbara. Nice to see you. I don't see your face, but anyway, hi, Barbara. Thank you. Does that answer your question enough? Do you have anything else you want to ask about that? You're welcome. Maybe you can reach out to me, Barbara, on Facebook and we can become friends. So if you have any more questions, we can continue. And Barbara, did you listen to my excerpt or did you have the book? Were you listening to the excerpt as I read it, or were you able to read along because you have a book? You would like to get a book. Okay. Well, there's a link below or connect with me. Oh, you did. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much. Blessings to you. Blessings. All right. So we're going to go to the next excerpt, which is not as long, but it's also another prompting for us to talk about. Before I go any further, Charles, did you want to say anything at all? Are you there, Charles? No worries. That's fine. I'm going to read. Thank you, Charles. I'm going to read, if you want to join me, on page 109. And I believe this is still in the section of spirit. Okay, 109. It's called Our Bio Body Computer. We are living biocomputers, not the manufacturers of Apple, Dell, HP, or Toshiba, but of the creator, maker, GD, God direct. We are not mere mechanical devices connected to a limited source of power, but biological, sentient beings who are connected to an unfathomable energy source that is beyond our scope of comprehension. We contain an elaborate and extensive neural network containing a galaxy of cells within a biosphere of life that continues to grow and evolve on its own merits. We have sensory faculties to hear, taste, smell, feel, and see all the beauty before us, along with memory, instinct, and intuition that enable us to sense beyond the physical senses. The body's ability to replicate, heal, and regenerate ourselves and the assimilation of nutrients all work in receptive and active flow toward the benefit of the whole. This biological computer, our living body, doesn't have an external keyboard that we tap our fingers on to retrieve or access information on a screen. We do, however, have our own inner screens. Our imagination, our memory bank, which are archives of intelligence that we can tap into at any time. The very instant we have a thought, it is like a finger tap on the keyboard that downloads this thought into a feeling and into an experience we can either use momentarily or archive for future use. Each thought is the prime mover that instantaneously lights up our inner motherboard that activates this momentum. Our biocomputers come with the latest operating system, generational upgrades. Each generation is an upgrade. Unlimited gigabytes and memory storage. Wow, what a computer, right? Along with our own inner recharging system. We are already super multiprocessing biocomputers of a superior kind. Humans have not yet acclaimed and nor actualized the full capacity they each own and can access within themselves. We have taken this potentiality for granted, perhaps because it is given to us at no monetary cost, sadly to say. Deeming this mere human, thank you, Charles, deeming this mere humanness as incidental, humanity in our limited scope of what we have at our fingertips seeks out to create mechanical devices to replace our own conceivable efficiency. We constantly seek the latest computer operating system that will give us access to more information, faster communication, or more distraction from self. Our dependence on computers has enslaved us in the limited edition of self. We have come to rely on accessing information from a source of artificial intelligence at the expense of our own. Our brains have learned to calibrate with each tap of our finger as we touch the keyboard, and off we go, thrust into a world of illusion. We can ask a question and the answer is given. We search for ways to think, ways to go about a situation, what options we have at any given moment, and while this has become an invaluable tool, we have lost the real touch and pulse of the game. We have numbed our instinct and ability to tap into the deeper truth of who and what we are. This touch and go with each tap of the keyboard has dissipated our innate ability to think and become. I'm going to read that again. This touch and go with each tap of the keyboard has dissipated our innate ability to think and become, to access our superlative potential of our God direct apparatus. Our advancement does not need to depend on an external mechanical device by tapping our fingertips to access the all that may be. Computers have exponentially helped evolve our world of communication as information is granted to us in all the sectors of world affairs, news, fashion, health, how-tos and when-tos. But we can afford to pay more heed to what we can access and how we can access it within our own body-mind mechanisms. If we could rely less on external hardware devices and learn to sharpen and hone our inner adroitness and master senses, we have the capacity to experience something rather than just learn about it. We are all interconnected by our thoughts that continue to create the world around us. Let us not divert and minimize the power of who and what we truly are as creators of our reality. After all, we are told time and time again that we are created in the image of God. It's a bit of a download, huh? That's quite a download. No matter how many times I read it, it's like, okay, that's good. That's a download. That's a transmission. The activation, again, as I mentioned before, is short and succinct. It's just a couple of about 4 or 5 lines. Here is the activation. Let's do it together. Close the eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Come into this God-given apparatus. Come into the miracle that you are. Here is the activation. Give recognition, credence, and acceptance of the power and intelligence that lie within your own living bio-body computer. So let's for a moment give recognition and the credence and accept this part of ourselves, the wholeness of ourselves, not a part of ourselves, it's the totality of ourselves, of the power and intelligence that lies within, that is our living bio-body computer. Even just saying living bio-body computer is an activation. Enjoy your computer and wonderful devices that can take you far and wide, but never underestimate the ability you have in an instant to get an up close and intimate, real, live version of yourself as well. Take a few deep breaths and take that in, remembering who you truly are, and remembering not to hand over your autonomy to outside influences such as computers and machines and AI intelligence that's coming up in our world very fast, very quick and fast. We need to really embrace our full divine intelligence before we can go off handing out our, I wouldn't even say to hand out our autonomy out there. We have the capacity to be turbine source of energy and aliveness, and we can turbine that and activate that and grow and talk and be and exist and live and share and communicate and love from that. Namaste and blessings. I'd like to hear from anybody before we close off our book club. We're 45 minutes in. Anyone have a question or a comment?
I do.
Yes, Alison.
Before I share the one, there is just a small delay with the comments coming in.
Okay.
So we'll pace ourselves for that. So I'll get my question in as the others just arrived, and I'll share those in a moment.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask your wisdom on the grounding process. So between the 2 excerpts, that really was a theme that is part of the backbone, the structure of the book. It's the connection with the earth, connection with our physicality. How is it that so many people have a problem with grounding? It's the technology, but it's also diversions. I mean, there's a lot to it, but intrinsically, you get where I'm going.
You really want the answer?
I think we all need the answer.
Well, number one, let's go way back. Way back. Originally, we had a polytheism. We had people would see their gods and goddesses equally. There was the male masculine and the feminine aspects of god, goddess, and people were equally across the board. Then I'm not going to blame or point the finger, but then there was the religion aspects that came in, the Judaism that came, the Moses that came in and siphoned in and said that there's one God and it's male, and there's the commandments, and that was around the time. There's probably before that. I don't want to blame Moses. Moses is a wonderful being and teaching us a lot in the scope of history, but that was like one of the first ways where man was deemed that there's one God, and if you don't follow that God, you'll be punished. And that closed the advent out of the goddess and the feminine aspect. And so uh, that was like one of the first times. And then Christianity and different religions that had come in and dismissed, in a sense, the feminine part of God. How could you have a father possibly without a mother? How could we possibly think that there is a father God without a mother God? So the dismissal of the mother energy came in early in our history of mankind. And so from there, and a lot of the goddess traditions that were stumped on, trampled on, the temples of the goddesses were demised, desecrated. And then a lot of the religious Christian churches were built on top of those temples because the goddess energy knew about the ley lines of the earth, the energy of Mother Earth, and chose particular power spots to create and build their temples on. So, the Christians weren't ignorant. They know that there's a power spots there because that's where the temples were. So they actually desecrated the temples and built on top of that. So the feminine over the time has been squelched and stomped on. Even though the feminine is coming up and, females are up there and they're earning money and they're providing and they're, in a sense, becoming men in a sense now, more masculine in that way to balance out the equation. But as a consequence, Mother Earth, as part of that goddess energy, has been looked at as some commodity to be used, objectified, not sacredly revered for the goddess, for the goddess, not goddess as in looking beautiful and look at the beautiful train and veils I'm wearing, but the goddess energy, the being of the mother energy that is solidified and embodied into a planet that is alive. Gaia, they call her. So already, just letting you know, the half of our brain, in a sense, half of our self has been hidden away, the feminine side. And so we're not really, especially in the industrial era and now the technological era, we've gotten more and more further away from our connection to the earth. And the earth has the Schumann's resonance that vibrates and resonates to a part where our nerve system can really calibrate into the oneness of all things. The earth is not fighting and competing. It just operates as a whole organism of oneness that's always producing, it's always giving, it's forever giving. And that part of the mother that gets judged, a lot of people take advantage of their mothers because the mother's always going to be there to love. So that loving unconditional energy can be taken advantage of through the way that we have been indoctrinated and programmed to think about the feminine energy. So I'm giving you an overall answer on that, but coming now more into the now age, the nowness, is that we are so busy. We're tapping away at our computers and we're swaying and we're watching TV and we're not going out into nature to really be, to recalibrate who we are as a species, as a bio-body living organism computer, to recharge from a greater power point. We have our own rechargeable, the interstellar cellular fluids, the sleep at night, the electromagnetic currents, all of this, we are batteries in that way, and we get to recharge. But mostly, not only through sleep, but really mostly we get to recharge through the elements and through Mother Earth, to ground our energy, put our feet on the ground, and get out of this that holds us hostage, holds us hostage to the limitations of yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad, poor, rich, all the different factions of duality that happens up here doesn't happen in the body. It doesn't happen in the body. The body is a perfect mechanism. Even if you're sick to the degree of onto death, that's exactly perfect for what needs to happen, because that's what the result is. The result is what you've been doing is the body's not to blame for any disease. It's doing exactly what you're doing to it. So it's pure. And so is Mother Earth and nature. And so is really masculine and feminine energy. Not one's better than the other, but we really need to come out of this duality of what's better or worse into a place that is more stable and grounded. And that's very much down into the base of our being, down, not up here, but down into the root and connecting our roots to Mother Earth, which is a power point. Our power point that we can draw from, draw nourishment and love and equilibrium and oneness and greater sense of being from. So does that explain the answer to you, Alison? Is that anything I missed there for you?
I think I'm going to be re-listening to this. That was so comprehensive, but it was so needful,
Yeah.
because we get bits and pieces. We don't get the scope
Yes.
typically that you just provided. And
Yeah.
that within the wholeness of it, now in a way, it's a complete meal. And it makes sense within the body's own dynamics of, I get a piece of the puzzle, but I don't quite know where it fits, or it fits here, but then I'm still kind of off
It's
balance.
always so good to get the balcony view, I call it, not the little bits and pieces, but that's the spirit part of us that can step out of the trench of our mind into the greater part of self, into our higher self, where we can, that's why meditation is so important, that we can actually sit in silence. Silence is where all the wisdom births from. The wisdom is always there. It's just in the silent zone, in the silence of God, of all that is. That's where we're going to be able to hear the deeper wisdom.
Beautifully said. Thank
Yes.
you so much, Amalia.
Yes. Is there anybody else there who would like
Yes.
to ask a question or say something before we leave? Because we're about
Yes.
to close off in
Oh,
5 minutes.
hold on. Here we go.
Division is the source of all conflict. We must be one and not separate. Masculine and feminine. This is from everybody. This is from Charles Panzarella, a brilliant man, and doing brilliant things in the world too, actually. This is what his comment is. Division is the source of all conflict. Yes, amazingly said, right? Division is the source of conflict, because conflict happens from two sides or more, but at least the basic of the two sides is going to create conflict, not just the one. Division is the source of all conflict. We must be one and not separate. Masculine and feminine are all other dualities. I'm in the oneness of nature right now. I know you said you were walking before. No ideas to divide or separate, just all one. Thank you very much. Yes. We must be one and not separate, masculine and feminine, and all other dualities. Yes, that's right. And so, our governments, let's just say our governments, no matter what country, they're really one of the major linchpins they have is to divide and conquer. And when society is divided into little, fair enough, there's towns or there's hamlets and there's cities and there's countries, we have that. But overall, the consciousness is not as one. We're just bringing it down, Charles, to the human factor as human beings. I mean, okay, we've got the galaxy as one too, but I'm just bringing it to the world level, that we are, to fend for ourselves, where us and them, and the trees in the forest don't compete in this way. They help each other. They set the roots down and help the weaker trees give them water, give them sugar to help the other trees actually survive. They communicate with each other when there's a disease going through. They'll send a signal through the roots, I guess it's through the roots, and then they create a chemical that they produce to help and send that through the roots to the other trees to protect them from invaders or insects or disease. So they work as one. Nature, as you said, works as one. And division. Any wonder I had division? I had problems at school with division. In mathematics, I had problems with school with division. I probably already knew by then. And yes, the equilibrium of the world in this particular dimension or planet does work off duality, but only for us to bring the duality into the oneness. We do have two arms, but we also know we can bring those two hands into the heart of oneness, into the namaste. So thank you, Charles. I like what you said. Division is a source of all conflict. That would be another excerpt of the book. I could write another excerpt of that on another book. Thanks, Charles. I'm so happy you're here. And this is Barbara. Can you please speak a bit about the difference between accessing divine intelligence / wisdom from our mind, brain? Let me just break this up. Can you please speak a bit about the difference between accessing divine intelligence, wisdom, from our mind, brain, perhaps colored by our own life experiences and illusions, and accessing that same wisdom from our bodies? Thank you. Well, number one, the mind and body is not separate. Whatever we think in one moment is going to send a signal down into the body. So it's not one really, it's not separate. It's not divided. There's no division there at all. We know to yoke the mind and the body in yoga. That's what we're doing in yoga. That's what we're doing in meditation, is yoking. Yoking means to bring together two different things to work as one. We learned that at school. The oxen that has the yoke, the two oxen that together, they're yoked by the piece of wood so they can work together. So it's not separate. When I meditate and bring the mind together with the body, there's no mind and body. It just becomes one. It becomes one. It transcends duality in this way. Can you speak a bit about the difference between accessing divine intelligence and accessing the same wisdom from our bodies? I don't see it as separate somehow. The separation happens because we're not connected to our body. My body, our body, stores the wisdom in the bones, in the nerves, in the DNA. All of that is stored wisdom. Stored DNA, we do have ancestral heritage that comes through, and whatever our ancestors have not healed in their emotional body comes through to us. We end up having to deal with it because it's an inherited aspect. Same with the body. Certain DNA and genetic weaknesses and illnesses and diseases can come through that genetic line. If we behave the same way, we're going to definitely manifest it. But if we change our ways, which is part of evolution, we get to change our ways. We get to have another chance at this, to redeem ourselves from the disease or from the emotional aspect that has held us hostage throughout the family lineage. We get to heal that. So we get to heal that. We get to decipher that. So everything is stored in the body. You can access galaxies of wisdom through the body. The body has the five senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. That's kind of like the antennas of spirit. It's not separate. It's not a separate thing. It's exactly like how Mother Earth has her antennas, her expressions of her being is the elements of earth, water, air, fire and air and ether. That's the way Mother Earth gets to express. We get to express through our senses. We get to tune in to our senses. And then we have, of course, our third eye, which is a non-physical way of seeing things. So all I can say is we have a galaxy of wisdom in our bodies. It's not separate. So I think I've answered the question there. But let me tell you, Barbara, though, that you can really trust your body. The mind so much could be splintered off into a thought. The mind might be made of factions, but the body never lies. I'm getting the sunlight from the... Here we go. The body never lies. I'll just stay with the shadow like that. Yeah, the body never ever lies. It's like an innocent child. It's like an angelic aspect of who we are. It never ever lies. The mind, however, not the brain's part of the body. The mind is where the ego is connected. The ego is connected into the mind self, not the body. The body's not saying, oh, look at my elbow, it's ugly. The elbow is just doing itself. The mind is what's going to say that. So really we have to learn more and more and more to decipher and become one. Allow the mind and body to be in direct column of intention. And there's so much wisdom in this book, Barbara. I just want to let you know that this is all the wisdom that I have is in this book. So I'm glad you got the book, and I know Charles did too. Thank you very much. You're welcome. All right. Well, I think I can just say thank you very much, guys, for coming, Barbara and Charles. I believe, Alison, can you come? I believe there's a Facebook group, correct? What's it called?
Get my microphone unmuted.
Soul Search.
It is, yes, the Soul Search Spiritual Awakening Community.
Yeah, that's on Facebook, the Soul Search Spiritual Awakening Community.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out that our next meeting, before I go into that, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing everything. And I want to, one last thought for you is to hear the author read her own work is to infuse the field even that much greater, that much deeper. Yeah. You gave so much of yourself as you read, you poured yourself in to sharing, and the resonance was so impactful. So thank you.
Look how the light is creating a nice light bulb in my third eye.
Well, we look forward to seeing you and everyone next week for the next meeting. Yes. It is on Tuesday, the 9th of April at 4 p.m. Pacific.
Good time. And just so you know, Barbara and Charles, of course, I would love you to come. But don't feel compelled or bad if you can't make it. Just know that you're free to come and go. But of course, we're going to do a couple of other excerpts. I actually thought that I could get other people to read it. I thought it was going to be a Zoom platform. So sorry about that, Charles and Barbara, but it worked out okay. I liked it. I liked this method. Yeah.
It was lovely.
Okay. So where would I post? I guess in the invitation next time we'd do another post like we did today to let people know what excerpts are going to be. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Absolutely.
Charles, I love you. Blessings. Thank you. I feel your support. From my first book, Barbara, you're on to this book, but I did write another book as well, but that's which is called Spirit of the Stones, and that's on Audible. But stay with this one for now. This is good. Charles says, Charles, what did you say again? Thank you for your insights, Amalia, and all your great work, especially this great new book. It's amazing. Thank you, Charles. And then Barbara said something too. It was lovely. Great. Well, let's see if we see you next week. I'll be here. We'll do another couple of excerpts and some activations and more questions. I think the questions were great to be able to answer. I think that was the meat of the situation. Yeah. All right. Blessings, everybody. Can you stay on here, Alison, for a second? But I just want to say blessings to everybody else. Namaste. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. And one more thing before we leave. The eclipse is coming up. Solar eclipse.
That's right,
Please,
next week.
please, please, if you're still here listening, please, at that moment of the full eclipse in your area, I know for Sedona, Arizona, it's 11:22 is when the maximum peak of the eclipse. Please, if you can, spend 4.5 minutes in silence and bring your connection to the mother energy that has been hidden, because the sun's energy is male and patriarchal, and that's going to be stopped. That's going to be not happening for a while. So the mother energy that's always been there can return to us. And it's very important that we come together as a humanity to reset our purpose, to be in the stillness and in our heart and see our world as loving and peaceful, but feel it. Don't just see it, just become it. All right, everybody, that's all I want to say. April the 8th, solar eclipse. Many blessings.